Hi, Maisie. I had the option to either watch Companion or Dogman yesterday. Can you guess which one I chose? Dogman is a movie directed by Peter Hastings and stars Pete Davidson, Peter Hastings, Lucas Hopkins Cauldron, Lil Rel Howery, Isla Fisher, Stephen Root, Ricky Gervais, and a bunch of others. And now for the synopsis from Letterboxd. When a faithful police dog and his human police officer owner are injured together on the job, a harebrained but life-saving surgery fuses the two of them together and Dogman is born. Dogman is sworn to protect and serve, and fetch, sit, and roll over. As Dogman embraces his new identity and strives to impress his chief, he must stop the pretty evil plots of feline supervillain Petey the Cat. All right, let's talk about some context for this movie. Growing up, I'm sure this was the same case for you, the Scholastic Book Fair was a thing in school. I think it still is. I actually have no idea. But a lot of my friends would flood to those and buy a specific comic. That comic being Captain Underpants. Here's where it might get a little mind-boggling if you didn't have friends who read Captain Underpants or you didn't watch the Captain Underpants movie from 2017. In the Captain Underpants comic book, there are two kids who turn their principal into Captain Underpants. Those two kids are George and Harold. In the Captain Underpants story / universe, however you want to call it, those kids write a comic book called Dogman. This movie is George and Harold's comic book come to life. It's not a story that takes place in the same world as Captain Underpants, but it's a story within the story of Captain Underpants. Me personally, I never read Captain Underpants growing up, and then Dogman released around 2016, 2017, and by that point, I wasn't into those kinds of comics anyways. So I wasn't sure if that was a connection to the story that you needed to know going into the movie. I'm happy to say it is not, but knowing that detail going into the movie, I found it very charming. I also found the trailer for this movie really charming, specifically that first one that they released. We're in an interesting time where Disney animation, while still being pretty gorgeous and high level and, you know, it's Disney animation, we are seeing a bunch of other studios move away from the Disney style of animation. So most of my life, everyone was trying to copy or replicate that and kind of make it their own thing because Disney was the animation standard. What we're seeing now is kind of another animation renaissance where everyone is saying, hey, we've been doing it this way for 15 to 20 years. What if we tried a few other ways, right? Recent examples of this are the Spider-Verse movies, the latest Puss in Boots movie. I would even argue the Captain Underpants movie, the Lego movies. Anyways, you got a bunch of different forms of animation coming out, and this trailer, when I saw that it was similar to the Captain Underpants animation style, but it was designed to look like those Dogman comics, I immediately fell in love. I was like, already, this is a breath of fresh air. That looks like a lot of fun. So it's really interesting to see, not just a movie, it's really interesting to see movies in general kind of surpass Disney in animation style and quality. It's kind of like that weird animation period where like Disney kept pumping out movie after movie and like sometimes they were a hit and sometimes they were not. I had this thought after the movie and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna stick with it. So like the kids who grew up with Disney movies like Strange World are going to think of it as the same way 90s kids think about Atlantis and Treasure Planet. I'll let you argue about that if you want. So as the synopsis says, there's a police character named Greg and his dog, and they solve crimes together. They are always going after Petey the Cat, who is just evil inventor, lunatic cat. One of those times that they're going after Petey the Cat, the job goes horribly wrong and they're both hospitalized. And the only solution that the nurses can think of is, oh, what if we put the head of this dog on the body of this man? And thus, Dogman. Now, when I first saw that in the trailer, I had no idea that was the Dogman origin. So I was like, holy crap, that is a terrifying thought. But if you know the characters George and Harold from those Captain Underpants stories, they are the kinds of kids to come up with crazy lunatic stuff like that. So Dogman has the intelligence of the dog, who is the smarter of that partner duo, but the body of the police officer who was very much like a physical kung fu guy, but didn't necessarily have a brain, right? He was just kind of dumb. I was really in love with the movie for like the first 10 or 15 minutes. Petey the cat is eventually arrested and continues to break out, and there's like a giant montage sequence where it's catch Petey, break out, catch Petey, break out, catch Petey, break out. It was starting to get to a point where I had no idea where else the story could go. I was like, as far as I know, this is everything that we kind of see in the trailer. So I don't know of anything else. I didn't watch any other trailers. I did before this review to double check, and there is more information that I was not aware of. This movie quickly becomes a very heartfelt love letter to man's relationship to dog, but also fathers trying to be there for their kid, but not knowing how to because they didn't have the father figure. And so it goes from a movie where I'm like, oh, I really love this. And then I kind of start getting bored and I'm like, oh, this is just gonna be a movie that's in a daycare on in the background, like kids are playing and it's pulled up on Netflix. And then it completely sideswipes me and I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting teary-eyed in a Dogman movie. Now, I'll admit some of that is just nostalgia because Dogman reminds me a lot of a dog I used to have named Bo, but a lot of it was also this father-son dynamic. The plot of the movie is Petey the cat needs a way to take down Dogman because he keeps getting put in jail and it keeps breaking out. What does Petey the cat do? He buys a cloning machine to make a clone of himself, but he doesn't read the instructions. He clones himself and out pops out a little child, Petey the cat. So Lil Petey is this kid's name. And then he reads the instructions and it's like, once you've made your clone, wait 18 years or so, and then they'll be just like you. So Petey the cat is stuck with this little cat that he wants nothing to do with. So he abandons the child, and then the child finds fatherhood in Dogman, but doesn't lose love for his father. And this movie is great. Now, there's other plot elements in it, but the theme of the movie was surprisingly fatherhood, loving people despite their flaws. It was really great. Now, it did make me think of a movie that I very much hold dearly. I love it. I think it's genuinely the greatest movie about this character ever made, the Lego Batman movie. Yes, this movie is essentially just the plot of the Lego Batman movie. Like, if you really break it down, it's just the Lego Batman movie. But man, does that specific story formula work on me? I don't know. I really like father-son stories. I think that really started with Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and then movies that kind of touch on those themes, I tend to have a little bit more of a bias for because I recognize it and I'm like, yeah, that pulls at my heartstrings in a specific way. I really like that. The animation is a lot of fun. I already touched on that earlier, but I'm happy to say it's consistently epic from start to finish. Like I said, there is that maybe 5 or 10 minute period after the first couple minutes of the movie where I was genuinely thinking, yeah, this is definitely gonna be on the background somewhere while kids play. So it's not a perfect movie. I think it does have some pacing issues, but overall, this is a movie that works for me. I really had a fun time watching this. I had a lot of laughs. I did on Letterboxd deduct a point because potty humor, but I do recognize that it's a kids movie, which while we're talking about kids movies, let's go ahead and address something real quick. Going into this movie, I actually had the thought of, okay, I'm actually gonna be filming a review for this later. Is this movie made for parents and kids, or is this movie made for kids? That dictates the way I think about this movie. I often see an argument of line of, it's a kid movie, you're being too harsh about it. When you've had such great kids movies that work for kids and parents, and not just therapy for adults at Pixar, I don't see a reason why the movie can't just be treated as a movie. Like, yes, your target audience is kids, but why can't it work for adults and teens, grown-ups, things like that? It's made for kids, you're not the target demographic. That's true. However, that's not an excuse to make a bad movie, at least in my opinion. So as far as Dogman goes, It checks the box. I think this is a wonderful kids movie. I think this is great, and I think it has a lot of cool lessons for kids. And it also checks the box for adults because it really makes you think, oh, I wonder how my actions are being viewed to my kid and how are they handling that. I don't know. This movie was really sweet. It touched my heart. I love this movie. So Maisie, should you go see Dogman? Abso-freaking-lutely, you should go see Dogman in a theater. Don't wait for streaming. Go watch Dogman. I think you and I are pretty similar with the type of animated projects that we love. We tend to find the really goofy parts really great. So like Looney Tunes, the more modern Mickey Mouse cartoons, the Lego Batman movie. I think you will also probably really love this movie. So don't wait for streaming. Go to the theater. Watch it. Anyways, I had a few hot takes thrown in there. So do you agree with those takes? Do you not? Let me know in the comments. I would love to have discussions about that, whether it's the quality of kids' movies or if Treasure Planet and Atlantis are actually as good as we think they are. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you at the movies.